Okay, what I'm saying is like America would not allow China or Russia to be at their border, such as in Mexico.
Nobody wants to be with Russia and China.
Therefore, they had an agreement that none of these countries that border Russia would allow NATO. That's what this is all about. It's about security. And they had an
Putin
agreement.
has succeeded in fooling thousands of people, millions of people all over the world this is all about. It's not about this. It's about accountability.
What is it about?
Putin felt.
What do you think?
I'm
Russia
literally
wants?
answering your question. You
what do you think that
you don't
Russia
even
wants
have the decency to let me finish answering your question.
I just asked you a question.
Can you ask me your question so I can answer?
Okay. What do you think, in your opinion, Russia wants from this war? What is their agenda?
Okay, I will answer your question from the beginning to the end. And the answer is very simple. Russia wanted to ransack Ukraine to enrich the Russian elites. And this has been revealed not only by the Ukrainians, not only by the Americans, but by the Russians themselves, including Prigozhin. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Prigozhin is now dead. Because Prigozhin said so himself. This war was not started to denazify, it was not started to demilitarize, it was not started to save Russian speakers or ethnic Russians. It was started to enrich the Russian elites.
I can't believe you really can stand here and just tell me that because they wanted to get rich, that Ukraine is so attractive to them. Why?
Because they felt like they could get away when invading Ukraine.
Bro, you go into a
They would have never tried to invade a NATO country.
If Ukraine had gold mines or oil like
Ukraine
crazy,
is a very rich country. It's a very resource-rich country.
So is Russia.
So is Russia. No
Thank you. Okay, Russia is not looking for any, like, he's saying that only for
Okay, because
material-
Russia has riches, Russia isn't planning to take the riches of others. Because rich people never try to steal from others, do they?
Wait a minute, this has nothing to do with riches. Why did it stop at Donbass? Why is it right
Remember
now?
this one.
If it was
Remember
trying
so
to
you can
conquer
ask me this
Ukraine, why did they always agree to just stop at Donbass? All the peace agreements they had were to stop at Donbass because they were trying to protect the Russians living in Donbass. That's what their agenda is. Nothing else.
Who feels time pull the trigger on Donbass? On Donbass, who feels tired, feels time start?
You know, I will start dissecting this NATO argument because this has been going on for way too long. Wait, Tommy, just a second, please. Tommy, just a second. So let's dissect this NATO argument. First of all, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. You ever heard of these three countries?
I know that
They're all
I
NATO
know where
countries,
they are.
and Latvia in particular
they
is the same distance from Moscow as Ukraine is.
Do they have NATO
It's the
forces?
same. They have NATO forces. Yes, they have NATO troops in there. Yes, they have all of that and more.
They have all the missiles and everything.
They don't have missiles. They weren't planning to put missiles there. They weren't planning to put missiles in Ukraine. There was no conversation ever about putting nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Now let me finish. I'm still not finished. I'm still not finished. You were saying that how is it that they would allow Ukraine to join NATO if Ukraine is close to Russia? Russia is close to the US, as Tommy has said, because of Alaska. They have Alaska right at their doorstep, and the Russians are still exactly. The Russians are still butthurt for giving up Alaska long ago, for selling it to the Americans. They're still butthurt, and they want to take it back by force. If they could, they would try 100%. Third point: Russia has invaded every single country at its border when enforcing their will. They invaded Ukraine. They invaded Belarus. They invaded Kazakhstan. They invaded Georgia.
When did they
invade Kazakhstan? Very good question. When the Kazakh people were having their peaceful protests at their capital of Almaty to overthrow, to put down their Russian puppet regime. When they were having
anybody
their
who's
peaceful protests.
pro-Russian, and then the CIA supplies money. Look, this is not.
What does the CIA have to do with
CIA
this?
has
The
everything.
Russians
Who's
sent
George Soros?
tanks.
Who's George Soros?
The Russians
You know
sent
who George
tanks.
Soros is?
What does George Soros have to do with
With
this?
Ukraine.
You're
He
jumping
said,
from
I
topic
bring
to
the-
topic.
He's the
You're
one-
jumping from topic to
No,
topic. Let's
this
finish
is the
one
same
topic.
topic.
No, it's not.
You just brought it up.
No, it's not.
You just brought it up.
We're talking
You
about
brought
the
it
war
up
in
in
Ukraine. You're talking
Kazakhstan.
about conspiracy theories.
Okay, no. What conspiracy
My
theory?
friend, you asked me to tell you
America
which countries
has been
the Russians have
overthrowing
invaded.
governments in
I have
other
given you a
countries
list.
all over
You
the world.
are switching
So
the
you're
argument
saying
again.
that, CIA
You are
never,
switching the
are you saying
conversation to a
CIA never
different one.
overturned any
You
government?
are switching. That's what about this.
Is
Two
it-
wrongs
are you
don't make
saying-
it right.
are you saying-
Two wrongs don't make it
Are you
right?
saying-
Two wrongs don't make it right. That is what I'm saying. Just because somebody else did something bad doesn't mean Russia should get away with the bad things that they are
you
Do you agree with that?
Are you
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, you agree with that. So why does it matter? What have other countries done in the past? Why does that
I
matter
answered
now?
your question, now you answer mine.
Okay, what's your question?
Okay, my question is this. Do you believe that CIA never overturned any government in the world?
No, I don't.
No, like the Shah, like Saddam Hussein, like Libya, like all the other countries in the world. Everybody knows that CIA is
What was
behind
the
it.
first one you mentioned?
Shah of Iran.
Okay.
Was that overturned?
That's debatable because they were having some disagreements about the oil.
My friend, everybody knows.
So it's a
All
bit
say that he
debatable.
overturned
But I
government.
agree with you about Saddam Hussein. But Saddam Hussein kind of brought it on himself. He was invading every country at its border at that point. He invaded Iran, he invaded Saudi Arabia, he invaded Kuwait. He was starting wars with everybody around him. He was a liability. And the Saudis actually encouraged the Americans to invade.
So you're
Iraq.
saying that America has never overturned any
No,
government?
I'm not. I'm saying that they did overthrow governments.
Fine. So that's exactly what my point is. In Ukraine, they were changing the regime. Regime change is what I'm
It
talking
was the
about.
Ukrainian people.
No.
The Ukrainian people did not want to be with Russia. They wanted to be independent.
They weren't with Russia. They were independent.
They were independent.
Yeah, and
but,
they're
but
independent.
Yanukovych was trying to backtrack on their independence
No, they
and
weren't.
make them more dependent on Russia.
No, they weren't.
Yes, he was.
This was
you know
the
what
president.
Yanukovych
The
said he was
elected
going to do?
president was
Okay, hold on.
pro-Russian. It was your people
quick
who
test,
elected
quick
him.
test. You're disagreeing with me very, very, very vehemently, with a lot of conviction here. But let me see if that conviction is founded on actual knowledge. Do you know why the Ukrainians were protesting against Yanukovych?
Why?
This is all I had to prove. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea why the Ukrainians
You don't
dislike
believe what I
Yanukovych.
said. If I gave you the answer, will you believe it?
Okay, what's your
They were
reason? Why do you
provoked
think
by the
so?
CIA to go.
The Ukrainians, the
That's
millions
it.
of
If I give you the
Ukrainians
answer,
were
you're not gonna
provoked by
believe
the
it.
CIA.
So what's the point of me answering the question?
You
when
are
you're not going to believe me.
demeaning the Ukrainian
No,
people
I'm not.
to such an
You're
extent.
demeaning
That's
the power of CIA.
disgusting.
CIA
It's
has been
absolutely
overturning
disgusting.
government all over the world, and they were trying to
This is
overturn this
absolutely
government
disgusting
because they were
rhetoric,
not
man.
following the
Oh,
American
why would
agenda.
the Ukrainians dislike Yanukovych?
No,
Because the
because
CIA
nobody
brainwashed all
no,
of
because he
them.
wasn't going with the NATO agenda. Any government that doesn't follow their agenda,
Let
they
me
overturn
make
the
life
government.
easier for you. Let me
No,
make
it's-
life easier for you.
you're not-
I'll be a
I'm
bit
not
I'll be
Ukrainian.
friendly
I'm not
for you. I'll
Russian.
be friendly for you now.
No,
Let me
I'm not
make my life
Ukrainian.
easy
I'm
for
not
you.
Russian. I have no dog in this fight.
Listen. Let's suspend our disbelief and imagine. Yes, indeed, the CIA just brainwashed all of the
Oh,
Ukrainians.
not brainwash. They pay money.
Let's
They have
suspend our
ways to
disbelief.
do
Let's
stuff.
suspend our disbelief.
Don't try to simplify it.
What
Okay,
was the
how it
point
works.
made by the Ukrainians? What was the justification for protesting against Yanukovych?
You can make any excuse.
What did they say?
Okay.
What did the protesters say?
My friend, there can
What
be
was the
any
reason?
excuse. There can be hundreds of
You don't
things.
even know that.
What do you mean never? They could say anything that he was unjust, that he was doing this and this. What they were doing, what they were being unjust to the people in Donbass. And he
I
was
always knew
he
you were
was
brainwashed, but I
pro-Russian.
thought you were at least.
If you're going to make, if I gave you the answer, you don't accept my answer.
But that is
because
not
I
an
said-
answer. This is a deviation. You're saying the CIA brainwashed them. Brainwashed them
I
to
didn't
believe
say
in
that.
what?
You said that.
No, you
I
said.
never said they brainwash. I said, yeah, overthrow government hasn't got to. It's got to do with money.
I have a question. What
You can pay you to do something. If I gave you $1 million and say, go make a protest, that's something else. Okay? There are other ways besides brainwashing.
So don't you be serious. I've done here. I mean, I've asked this individual, what were the Ukrainians brainwashed to
No,
believe
do
in?
you think that
He can't say
your
it.
current president
He
is
doesn't know
not a
what the
corrupt man?
Ukrainian people believe in. He doesn't know what the Ukrainian people want. He has no
What
clue
do you mean,
why they were,
Ukrainian people?
why they didn't want
Ukrainian people's
Yanukovych.
voice has been not heard because
Oh,
the
it
people
hasn't been
in the
heard.
Donbass of Ukraine.
It hasn't been heard.
No, because your president
The people
has
in
been
Donbass have
attacking those
voted to
people.
be part of
Your
Ukraine.
army has been attacking its own people.
Hold on. Why is
That's
it?
what it
Why
is.
is it that the vote to join Ukraine after the collapse of the Soviet Union? Why is it that that doesn't count? Why
does,
is it?
it
Why
does.
did-
Then Russia-
then
why
you
is it that
agree
Russia
that
never
Russia
agreed?
violated the choice
Hold on,
of the
hold on.
Ukrainian
No,
people
didn't.
to be
You guys-
independent from
no.
Russia?
You guys violated the
You
agreement.
have just agreed with that.
You agreed with Russia that you would not have NATO. You would not join
No,
NATO.
we didn't. We never agreed
that
about
was
that.
That is the
What was
agreement.
that agreement called? called? What was that treaty called?
Listen, when the Soviet
Of
Union
course,
fell,
there was
when
no
the Soviet
treaty.
Union fell, between
There was no agreement.
there was agreement between the
What was it
West
called?
and the Soviets.
What was that agreement called?
That agreement was that you would not come to
What
any
was
of
the
these.
name of this agreement?
What do you mean? What was the name of this agreement?
The Budapest Memorandum is when the Ukrainians agreed to give up their nuclear arsenal.
For what?
was
For
this
what?
agreement
For what?
called?
For what?
In exchange for a promise of peace.
Exactly.
In exchange for a promise from Russia to respect Ukrainian sovereignty and Ukrainian
Exactly.
borders.
And did they do it?
The Russians, no, they violated the agreement.
When? No, when?
In 2014, they
Okay, but
violated
why
the
didn't they do it
agreement.
back then?
What?
Why didn't they do it back then?
Why didn't they do what?
Why didn't they invade Ukraine before that?
Before that?
Yeah.
Why didn't they invade Ukraine before that?
Yeah.
Because before that, Ukraine had a few presidents who were Russian puppets. But when Ukraine finally decided to go their own way,
So you
the Russians
overturned
decided
your
to invade
choosing.
Ukraine.
Those Russian puppets, were they elected? Yes. Russian puppets
Hold on
were
a second.
elected by
Hold on,
Ukrainians.
hold on.
Then you call them Russian puppets because your CIA is saying he's a Russian puppet.
Okay,
he's not doing what we want him to
which
do.
presidents I'm
That's
talking
it.
about? Do you know a single Ukrainian president?
It's okay, my friend.
Besides Zelensky, of course.
No, the one that you guys
Of course you don't
overturned,
know any
right?
of them.
In
I
2014,
can give
right?
you, okay, I'll be nice to you. I'll give you a crash course.
It's okay,
I'll
it's
give you a
okay.
crash course of Ukrainian presidents. The first Ukrainian president was Kravchuk. He was the president who agreed to give up Ukrainian weapons. The second one was Kuchma. Kuchma was pro-Russian. Kuchma was not well liked, so after Kuchma, there was a different president elected. His name was Yushchenko. Thank you. His name was Viktor Yushchenko. And he was poisoned by the bloody KGB because he wanted Ukraine to go a bit more with Europe. His face looked like a frog after he was poisoned. Of course you don't know about
I
this,
know that.
but I'll
I know
keep going.
about it.
Of course you know about that.
Now-
Remember that name. I'll ask you that name in a while. After Yushchenko, there was Yanukovych. Why? Because Yanukovych was not checked for voter fraud on the second try to become president. On the first try, he won the election, but he was checked for voter fraud, and then he lost the election because he was caught during voter fraud. On the second election, he was not checked. He became president of Ukraine. It's questionable whether or not he was legitimate at all. After Yanukovych, when he backtracked on the promises that he has made, there was Petro Poroshenko. After Poroshenko, there's Volodymyr Zelensky. Any questions?
My question would be, if Russia wanted to invade Ukraine, it had all this time since its independence to do so, after they gave up the weapons. If they just wanted to take the land and rule them, it could have done that by force. As per you, at that time they were very weak. At that time they didn't have all their army and stuff. No, at that time they weren't in the 90s. They could have done that very easily after they gave up their nuclear weapons. But they didn't do it because they had an agreement. And what the part of that agreement is that you will
In
not
2014, all
allow.
of a sudden, they don't only no
No,
longer
no, no.
have that
It's
agreement.
no.
So they still had the agreement.
No, my friend, because
They just violated the agreement. You just don't want to say
They
it.
were attacking their own people who were
They were
pro-Russian.
attacking their own people. You just don't want to
Exactly.
say that the Russians have violated the agreement. You don't want to say it.
No, what did they violate?
In 2014, when they attacked Ukraine,
Were they attacking Ukraine or were they trying to defend the?
they annexed Crimea. They started a war in Donbass. Are you crazy?
The Crimea was always part of Russia. Okay, that's something.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Pro-Russian puppet.
Hold on a second. Hold on. So Crimea did not vote to join Ukraine. Crimea did not vote to join Ukraine then. So Crimea did not vote to join Ukraine after the Soviet Union collapsed.
My friend,
My friend. Okay, we're very friendly now. But you refuse to answer my question.
Why, are you my enemy?
Did Crimea join?
I Russian?
Did Crimea?
Am I Russian?
You're a pro-Russian. You're a Russophile.
No.
You're an apologist.
you are.
And you're a hypocrite too.
Yeah.
what I am is I don't want the world to go to a third world war. Is what I am. If you're not listening, I don't know why you're bothering talking to me. You want to talk to him or you want to finish this conversation?
Go on.
Okay, I have nothing to do with. I have no. Why would I be Russian? I have nothing to do with
I'm
Russian.
not saying you're Russian, obviously.
You're pro-Russian.
I'm not-
I never called
what
you
I'm
Russian.
saying
I
is-
said you're a Russophile.
No, I'm not a Russo. I have nothing. No,
You're an
what I
apologist.
am afraid of is
You're using their
because of what you're
arguments.
doing. Because of this, we can get into a bigger war. because of what your country is doing on behest of America. You're doing it on behest of America. You're fighting with American
you're
weapons.
defending your country on the behest of
country
America.
is doing it. I'm American, by the way.
You're an American.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay? And your country does not, yeah, we have freedom of speech, by the way. That's why we can say whatever we want.
You can say whatever you want. Never interrupt your enemy when he's
Actually,
making a
that's
mistake.
not entirely
Perhaps,
true.
you're following your party line. I don't have to
There
follow
is
any
hate
party line.
speech.
What I
Party
know
line?
is that
telling
your
you the
people, listen, the first your argument was they wanted the riches of Ukraine.
they did.
The elite wanted the riches of Ukraine. So
Yeah,
they invaded it. I'm like, why
My
did they
argument
stop?
remains the same.
Is that why they're fighting this war?
Yes, because the Russians wanted to enrich themselves.
Okay,
They felt
what
like
do you
they-
guys have that Russia wants? What is it that you have?
Let me finish. They felt like there would be no accountability for invading Ukraine.
Thank you. I
That's
understand.
the main
I
reason why they
understand
invaded
that. I
Ukraine.
understand
You
that.
realize that?
I understand
Okay,
that.
excellent.
Okay,
We're on the
now
same
tell me,
page.
what do you have that the Russians don't have?
What do we have
What
that
do
the
you
Russians
have?
want? Excellent
What?
question.
Yeah,
First
what
of
do you
all, we have people. The Russian population is collapsing.
Oh my.
The Russian population is diminishing. They want to add more people to their country.
So they invade the country to take people.
Secondly of all, it's a propagandistic win for Putin because Putin presents himself as some kind of a reunifier of ancient Russia or
What?
of the Soviet Union for his
What do you
for
have
his vote.
that Russia wants? Answer that. You said people.
We have
What
people,
else?
we have land, we have very fertile soil, we have our own gas, we have Crimea, which is unbelievably important for the Russian
No, you don't. That was a-
for
that
the
was a-
Russian
that was
for the
Russian
Russian
anyways.
fleet.
No,
Oh, it was,
no.
okay, it was Russian.
Anyways.
Hold on.
Okay.
So hold on. You're backtracking again.
So
a
you
while
have
ago,
nothing. You
a
have
while
nothing
ago,
Russia wants.
A while ago,
You don't have
you
gold.
agreed
You don't
with
have
me.
like oil.
A while ago,
You don't
you
have
agreed
anything
with me.
that Russia doesn't have.
You're a very
Okay,
ignorant
they
man.
don't
Let me
need-
tell you that.
You
You're a
don't
very
have
ignorant
anything
man.
Russia wants.
You're a very ignorant man, and you're also quite rude. I've already explained you these
I'm
things,
gonna
and
walk
you're
away.
backtracking.
Go
I'm
now.
gonna walk away.
Are you gonna run away now?
No,
Okay,
I'm gonna
run
walk
away. Go, go,
You're
run.
finished.
There's nothing for
you
you to
didn't
gain
have
here.
any point.
There's
You couldn't
nothing
come
for
up with
Projection.
anything
I
that
gave
Russia
you
wants
every
in your
single
country.
point,
They
but
were
you just keep
defending.
switching to other points,
You're-
and you keep getting
It's a
destroyed at
strategic
every
move.
single point you're
Doesn't he
making.
has a point like Ukraine is being used by
Listen, elaborate on the
by
agreement.
other entities,
Don't
like the
talk
people
other
are
things.
suffering,
Agreement.
of course. But
By
does he has
whom?
The Russians invaded us. The Ukrainians had no choice but to fight back.
Elaborate on the agreement.
The Hunter Biden thing, I haven't followed.
What could the Ukrainians do when the Russians invaded them?
The
What was their
rest is
choice?
BS. That is
People
the
are suffering,
point.
of course. But doesn't he have a
What are we
small...
supposed to do?
No, I'm saying maybe the
Exactly.
Ukraine is
He
also
just
being used by
he said,
other...
who's George Soros?
25
He doesn't know
years
who
ago,
George Soros is. What he's
You
about.
basically do the agreement.
What about the Hunter Biden laptop? Hunter Biden.
Anyway,
What is
so
Hunter
to
Biden
summarize,
doing in your country?
this individual here.
So tell me
he
about
is an
Hunter Biden.
apologist.
Tell me
he
about
is
Hunter
a
Biden and his
Russophile,
son.
and he's a very ignorant
No, I'm
individual
not. I'm not
who
a
refuses
Russophile.
to
I just
engage
don't
in
want
any
the
kind
world
of
to get
discussion.
into a third
And you
world-
can see his demeanor
third
right
world
now. I'm trying
war.
to speak, and he's
No,
not
no, no.
letting me
You're-
speak. He's just speaking over me.
Wait a minute.
Although I have allowed him to speak
No,
and
you
voice his
haven't.
opinion,
No, you haven't.
he has never allowed me to do the same thing. And every single time that I speak to him, that I answer his questions,
you let me
he goes
speak
ahead
after you're
and
done?
he interrupts me. He made the point about NATO, about this war started because Russia wanted to protect itself against NATO. Completely false point. NATO was already at the doorstep of Russia long ago.
No,
Russia
this is
did
a
nothing
strategic
to
point.
stop that. Second point he made, Ukraine was attacking their own people, blah, 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 blah. I gave him the point that Ukrainians never did such a thing. And he refused to show any evidence of the country.
And you have shown me
Third
evidence
point he
that
made, third point, that Ukraine was always part of Russia. Ukraine never existed at all. I gave him proof that there were treaties made between Ukraine and Russia that legitimized the existence of Ukraine and of the Ukrainian borders pre-2014 war. And he did not want to speak of it. In fact, he kept sticking to his point that Crimea was always part of Russia. Although, one time I remember, he agreed with me when I asked him, does the choice of the Ukrainian people to join Ukraine, to separate from the Soviet Union count? You respect the choice? He said yes. Later on, he said no. Crimea never was part of Ukraine. So, my friend, go ahead and say what you want to say, but I think you're just going to deviate and you're going to talk about other things. You're not going to answer
All right,
anybody.
I'm just going to say this. I'm not a Russophile. The thing that I want in this thing is Ukrainian president is corrupt. Their whole regime is corrupt. All the money that they have been getting is not accounted for. The weapons have been going on the black market. This is a very corrupt country. This is a very corrupt president. He's telling me this as if this is like a very, very clean government and it does all this. It kills its own people. And it's doing the
Russia does
violation
that.
of the agreements. Russia never came in there until they started threatening Russia's sovereignty by letting NATO to get close to them. That's what their agenda is. And
Bullshit.
through that, we could get into a third world war. That's my concern. We are having higher prices on oil. We are suffering because of this war, because of these people's actions.
You're suffering. So
We
the
are
people
suffering.
that are experiencing
We are
genocide are less
financially.
important than you.
What are you doing?
Suffering financially because everything is
You're
more
suffering financially.
expensive. Inflation because
this
of
is what it boils down
the
to.
food prices are going up.
Okay, so as clockwork, he did not talk about the points that I've made. We did not talk about anything we were talking about before. We started talking about completely different things. Oh, World War III, no. Oh, no, the Russians, they're
But what
defending
about
themselves. What about me? The prices, they're killing me. Oh. It's just so fun. Anyway, I do appreciate when people come forth and have the courage to have a discussion. Unlike the other guy who just started throwing insults and refused to be on camera. Even he was too scared to be. So the guy calls me a coward, but then he's afraid to be on camera.
Yeah.
Where's the logic? I don't get it. But this guy, he at least had the courage to come on camera and to defend his
Me
points.
again, gloopy moron. Yes, but everybody knows that the only reason why you're defending your country is because you're in the play of the CIA.
Of course. 10 gorillion pounds every single day, my friend. 10 gorillion.
Wait a minute, I've just got to head off to cash converters to pick up those black market weapons.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Then it's suddenly
So he wants some depleted germanium shells.
Well, we need that. We need that to fight against Russia. Russia's been using far worse on us. They've been using
defending
far worse.
yourself, and
Yeah.
then it suddenly stopped
I'm no
defending
friend of
yourself.
the Russians.
No,
And
I'm not saying you are.
Then they'll say things like, "Oh, I don't want to know." That's
No,
that's
this
exactly
is
what-
hilarious to me.
exactly what
When people
so-called-
talk about nuclear threat of Russia, oh, we can't be messing with Russia because they'll hit us with nukes. Dude, if the Russians didn't feel like there would be a consequence for using nuclear weapons, they would have used them 100 times already. They would have used them every time. They don't care. They really don't care. The only thing that's stopping Russia from using nuclear weapons is the threat of inevitable and overwhelming force from NATO, from the US, from Europe. That's the only thing that's stopping the Russians from using those nuclear weapons. And we got geniuses like this one saying here, oh, we need to allow Russia to have whatever they want because otherwise there'll be World War III. Against whom? The whole world against Russia. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. Or what? Maybe the superpowers of North Korea, Iran, and Russia will unite and will defeat those evil Americans in World War III. Is that right? My friend, it's ridiculous. It's just hilarious. Or maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you're one of those people who thinks that NATO is going to fight against BRICS. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard any Russophile say. I'm not saying you said it, by the way. I'm not saying you said it. You didn't say it yet. And I hope you're not going to say it. But I've heard some people say that before. That, BRICS is going to beat NATO. It's going to beat the EU. It's going to beat the US. What is BRICS? It's a bunch of countries who hate each other. India and China, they hate each other. They're having an almost war at the border every single day in the mountains. They have a demilitarized zone where they can't have guns there. Sticks and stones. Yeah, they have sticks, shields, and they fight each other. And there's casualties on a monthly basis there. There's a war going on between China and India. Go on.
Never last for longer, you know why? Because they are using dollars.
Well, BRICS was planning to change their currency, but that's not going to save them. BRICS is a bunch of... Look, it's basically China and France. BRICS is China and France. That's it. China is the only country that poses any threat whatsoever for the US in the BRICS. All the rest, most of them are, semi-failed countries. South Africa, almost failed country. Russia, really close to be a failed country.
Put that on me. And China is slowing down economically as well. So the days of runaway economic growth in China maybe coming to an abrupt end. Obviously, Xi Jinping doesn't prioritise economic growth as his predecessors.
That's very true.
They've had sort of a blood covenant, if you like, capitalism without democracy. They sort of say, if you try to have a say, we'll shoot you, but you can prosper. Xi Jinping is starting to jeopardise that. I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know if he can take them back to the days of Mao. But
Could go to jail or under the earth.
but at the same time, yeah, you mentioned some of them are semi-failed countries. Some of their economies are over-dependent.
Especially South Africa and Russia. Brazil was really close to a civil war because of Lula, because of that evil bastard.
Yeah, I know.
He wanted to make a communist insurrection in Brazil. But anyway, I won't delve much more into that.
I'm just hoping, with Lula, he's a less worse alternative than that Bolsonaro. But I'm just hoping.
I don't agree with that. I don't like Bolsonaro, but Lula is a communist.
I know that now. I was mistaken, and I'm sorry. I agree with you, but I'm just hoping that he's got his hands full sorting out the rainforest to be too much of a threat.
Yeah, we all make mistakes, but the important thing is to be able to learn with them, unlike the other individuals who I was talking with. Belarus, yeah.
Yes, if you support democracy there,
It's the legitimate flag of Belarus. The current one is an authoritarian flag. It's basically almost like their communist flag.
This is the anti-dictator flag.
Yeah, this is
the freedom flag.
The actual flag.
Freedom
of
for Belarus flag.
Maybe they'll pick this flag. Maybe I don't know if they'll keep the night or not.
I think it'll be just a script. But a gift. Someone just gave me this flag.
Oh no, I'm British. Okay.
Yeah, no, the red strip, that's what they get. It's just someone at a protest just gave me this flag as a gift.
Yeah.
And that's where Tommy Two Flags was born. I could have worn it around me, but if I care about a cause, I'm not going to put
What flag is this?
Belarus.
Last time I checked, Belarus was not white and red.
Yeah, but the current Belarus flag, they basically adopted it from the Soviet Socialist Republic of Belarus, so it's not a legitimate flag, it's basically the Soviet flag of Belarus, and this one is more legit, this is their historical flag.
This is their freedom
Sorry,
flag.
but right now, the flag for Belarus is not that right now.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, right now it's
sure.
the dictator's flag. This is the freedom flag.
Belarus is not a free country, so
And so what? So under that flag, it was a free country.
Yes, under this
freer
flag.
than it is
Who
now.
was the leaders at that time?
Smuskovic. Yeah, then someone called Lukashenko was elected, and step by step he made it into a dictatorship. There's interesting history with Smuskovic. You might have heard of him, but he was actually the handler of a young American who used to live in Minsk many years ago. His name was Lee Harvey Oswald. And then he returned to Texas. Yes, he lived in Minsk for a few years before he went home to America and decided to shoot the president.
From the beginning.
It seems that West Ukraine self-defense, or general, whenever they call themselves pacifists, but really they are supporters of dictatorship. And every time a dictator doesn't get their way and it backfires on them, it's suddenly, I don't want a third world war.
Nobody wants a war that they're losing, but everybody among these dictators, every one of them wants a war that they're
What about
losing.
how it affects me?
Again, I'll say it again. If it doesn't go a dictator's way, suddenly it's, I don't want a third world war.
No, right. They're all nice and innocent when they start losing.
Did you get that? Thank you, Shark Lady.
Yeah.
Shavuot everybody. Have a good week. Aksamak and Shana Tova. Живи Belarus, Slava Ukraine.
That's right.
Oh, I put that on me. If anyone's from the rally is watching, don't forget the details I gave you, and don't forget the air defense.
I didn't jump out my skin, no.
Yeah, headphone users beware. Anyway, that's it, guys. We're gonna wrap it up and see you next time.